Now let's read this question carefully, okay, because it's slightly different from our normal format. So it says, rearrange the 6 sentences denoted by A, B, C, D, E and F to make a meaningful 7-sentence paragraph. Why 7-sentence paragraph? Because there's already a first sentence given, which is what? This. Before Ebola. So we have a sentence here already. First sentence marked as number 1. It's not marked. I'm marking it now. Okay. As number 1 and then answer the given question. So which means I need to keep that in mind. That is number 1. And then the remaining whatever I sequence. So whatever sequence you put, it's like a starting sentence is given. I need to jumble the rest of the sentence. So when I get my sequence, I need to be careful to remember that already the first sentence is there. So keeping, and that's what it says, together with the first sentence marked as number 1 and then answer the given question. Right? Now let's look at it. What do we have? Let's look at it. Before Ebola became an epidemic that has killed more than 3,400 people, before it jumped borders and crossed oceans, it was a deadly if rare disease that had been contained during each of its 24 previous outbreaks. Ebola disease. There was a rumor that it came here as well. Right? This is a disease that attacked African countries. Right? So before Ebola became, I think, an epidemic that has killed more than 3,400 people. I don't think a D is here. Before it jumped borders and crossed oceans, it was a deadly if rare disease that had been contained during each of its 24 previous outbreaks. So there was outbreak again, something that happened suddenly, right? An epidemic. These are all the clue words for us. So what can be the next sequence? Is it for months? So what can be our next sequence? Remember, we also have to look at connecting words, right? The idea is to maximize our score, even if it looks very complicated and everything. If I can get 2 or 3 connecting sentences also, I'm kind of okay with it. It makes my life easy. Yeah? So let's see. What is my sequence? So after the first sentence, what can be the sequence? So it's talking about this particular disease, right? Let's look at the context. 4 months, Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea. So which means these countries are suddenly coming. They have to be introduced in some sentence, right? We'll wait for it. But after years of budget cuts, there's no reference to budget cuts in the first sentence. But if these local conditions, what local conditions? Not mentioned in the first sentence. This is crucial to remember as the disease churns out. Now this makes sense to come after the first sentence. Why? Because this is crucial to remember, meaning what? The previous breakouts. The 24 previous breakouts is crucial to remember as the disease, the Ebola disease, making reference to the disease, churns through these countries are here, Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea, because it underscores a troubling conclusion. Today's wildfire Ebola epidemic was not inevitable. So after 1, right, again, can it be F? Let's look at it before we finalize E. Nor was it alone. What is it referring to? It alone, governments around the world have stalled unwilling. So there is no reference here to it, because even if I say it's referring to Ebola disease, but then it says governments around the world, so I'm not able to connect F to first. So after 1 it's E, right? This is crucial to remember. The 24 previous outbreaks is crucial to remember as the disease, the Ebola disease, churns through blah 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 blah. Then we have these introduced, all the countries. So what's the next sequence? B. Making reference to those countries again. Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea are among the poorest countries on the planet. Right? So your clue is the countries themselves. And then B starts off expanding on those, saying, boss, they're the poorest countries on the planet with health systems that have been shattered by years of neglect and conflict. So they are going through their own problems locally within their countries. Right? What can be the next sequence? So I have 1 EB. The next sequence, 4 months organizations beg the World Health Organization? No. But after years of budget cuts and the gutting of its epidemic, where is that coming from? The previous one is talking about how the conditions are in these countries, right? So the condition is this: health systems that have been shattered by years of neglect. So referring to these pathetic poor conditions is D. But if these local conditions created the opening for the epidemic, Because of the years of neglect and conflict, these countries got affected by this disease. It was global inaction that helped it to flourish. Now, global inaction is a clue word here, keyword here. So after EB, D, what is the global inaction that helped it to flourish? It's not only the poor conditions in these countries, but also the global inaction. So globally, making reference to what can be the next sequence. Yes, now you introduce. So what was the global inaction? For months, organizations begged the WHO, World Health Organization, to begin marshalling resources to fight the crisis. So this has been in place. Did anything happen? C. But after years of budget cuts and the gutting of its epidemic, response unit who failed, WHO, World Health Organization, failed to act with anything approaching the necessary speed and competence. So organizations begged WHO to take some action, but they failed. Right? WHO being your keyword here. Beg to take action, no action taken. They failed. What's the only thing that is remaining? F. So it is not only WHO. So nor was it alone. So it is not just the World Health Organization alone. Governments around the world have stalled. So only they are not the only reason or the root cause for failure, but also governments around the world have stalled. Stalled means postponing, procrastinating. Stalled, unwilling to recognize this outbreak as the global humanitarian crisis it is. It could be any organizations, we don't know. The passage doesn't mention that. It just says in general, a lot of organizations probably came together and begged the World Health Organization to intervene and address this particular epidemic in these countries. But after years of budget cuts and the gutting of its epidemic response unit, WHO failed to act with anything approaching the necessary speed and competence, nor was it referring to alone. Governments also around the world have stalled, unwilling to recognize. So the right sequence is this: E, B, D, A, C, F. Alright? So connecting sentences that have to go together is C, F. Why? Because F is it is making reference to WHO. Not only they failed, also governments around the world failed. Again, AC, connecting sentences, both are referring to action that WHO was asked to take but failed to take. Right? DA talks about the local conditions, but global inaction comes into play. In D, right? The global inaction, that's your keyword, and you know it's addressing WHO. BD, everything is kind of interlinked. How D comes after B is only because in B, if you see, it talks about what is the condition. The condition is explained in B. The health systems that have been shattered by years of neglect and conflict. So this is the condition. So these local conditions refers to that. That's how D comes after B. And EB we know because of the countries itself. Right? That's the link. Liberia, Sierra Leone is introduced in E, and B also expands on a little bit more information. Yeah? Okay, so now that we have the sequence ready, now what you need to do, very important, is E will become 2, B will become 3, D will become 4, A will become 5, C will become 6, and F will become 7. Now these are your 7 sentences. After you get this sequence right, you can't have F coming after A, boss. Because WHO is your clue word here. Some action was requested or begged of WHO to take, which it failed. And then, because F also talks about something that is failed. And nor was it alone. That's your clue, right? So WHO is not the only one that failed, but governments around the world also have stalled. So that's the right sequence. F can't come after A. Quickly. So now you have the sequence, right? I'll just write the sequence later here. So we'll have an idea. So I have 1, which the sentence which is already given, right? Then we had E, which is sentence 2, B sentence 3, D sentence 4, A sentence 5, C sentence 6 and 7. Sorry, this will be F, which is sentence 7. Yeah, now that we have our sequence, right, let's look at the answer. Which of the following should be 4th sentence after the rearrange? 4th sentence is D. Which of the following 5th sentence is A? Last sentence is F. Second sentence is E. The answer key, I think it's given wrong, guys. So the answer key maybe I think it's given 2, which is incorrect. Yeah. Sixth sentence is C. That's it. So once you get your sequence right, keeping in mind the first sentence which is already given, you get your answers right. Yeah? Are you getting it? So actually, if you ask me, it was not a very difficult passage to jumble. To unravel or unjumble as such. It's a pretty easy one actually if you ask me. Because everything is so connected, it's so easy that, C has to follow A, F has to follow C. There is no two ways about it.